If someone comes up to you like Francis the Hustler kid from Recess and tells you, hey, I know exactly what's going to happen in this fight, they're a damn liar. That's what they are, because we have Istela Nunes taking on Sampage, Sam Hughes. Ooh. And for Sam Hughes, she is on a 3-fight losing streak to begin her UFC career. Now, I've sung her praises. I was really excited about her making her debut. Now, if we look at the 5-on-in, she loses to Vanessa Demopoulos back with LFA. Only a year and 8 months ago, and in that fight, Sam Hughes was having a ton of success with her pressure, and then all of a sudden she gets caught in one of those tricky inverted triangle chokes that Demopoulos likes to use, and she loses that fight. But it was a great performance by Hughes. She gets a win over Danielle Hindley over with LFA a year and 5 months ago, and then on short notice she gets called in, and they say, Red Rover, take on Tecia Torres, and it didn't go well for Sam Hughes. And her coach between round 1 and round 2 said, no dice, we can't take you out there for the second round. She had a little bit of an eye injury there. So Hughes able to work through that. She takes her next fight against Loma Lookboonmee. It did not go well for her in the Loma fight. Loma put on an incredibly complete performance, worked in the takedowns of her own. And then Sam's last fight, she takes on Luana Pinheiro, who is one heck of an uber prospect in this division, and once again on the losing end. So for Sam Hughes, there are some positives. She did rally back in that fight against Loma, made a good account of herself in the 3rd round. Against Luana, it wasn't all that great. Against Tecia Torres, it wasn't good. But it was on really short notice, but it wasn't very good. So she's taking on Istela Nunes, who's one of those prospects, like she's 6-2 with a no contest, but prospects, or 7-2 rather, with a no contest, where I just kind of scratched my head because you're 29, she had a 2-year layoff due to USADA suspension, stenozolol metabolites there, and if you do look at it, the 5-on-in, it dates back a long time. Her win over Caroline Martins was almost 6 years ago. She beats Mai Yamaguchi, pioneer women's MMA, over with one championship 5 years, 7 months ago. Gets a title shot off of that almost 5 years ago against Angela Lee. Gets submitted in that, but listen, there's no shame. Angela Lee, hell of a fighter. Then she gets a win over Gina Inyang, which is good. I mean, 3 years, 8 months ago. Then the USADA suspension. Then she takes on Ariane Carnelossi. When it was on the feet, Istela Nunes didn't look that bad. Muay Thai's the background. She trains out of, Club de Luta over in Brazil. Last couple training camps, finishing them off, rounding things out at American Top Team, and I'll highlight that a little bit later. But Istela Nunes, it was like a hot knife through butter when it came to some of that takedown defense there for Carnelossi, who's one of the most physically gifted athletes in this division. We should say that. She can power through her takedowns, but Istela Nunes, it was a pretty disappointing UFC debut.
I don't mean this to be disrespectful, but we're talking about people like Carnelossi and Loma Lookboonmee giving both these fighters really big problems. It just kind of tells you where both of these fighters are in their MMA careers. Like, a win this weekend is very, very important for both Nunes and Sam Hughes, because like you said, Sam Hughes, not that there was a lot of hype behind her coming into the UFC, but there were some promising signs for sure. She has a well-rounded game. She showed off some really nice grappling up until that point, and she has sort of that toughness and cardio that don't just come along. Like, not that she's an uber athlete by any means, but she can keep a really solid pace as the fight continues. And you really thought that those skills were going to translate better into the UFC?
Collegiate athlete, track and field at Wofford. You love to see it.
Exactly, and those things do help her. It's not really often we say, hey, track and field's a good background for MMA, but she does have very, very good cardio, and that, of course, has helped her. But my issue with Sam Hughes is, again, when you're a fighter and you don't really have a natural skill that you can always go back to win you rounds, win you moments in a fight, it's going to be really hard for you to go out there and fight UFC caliber fighters. And the real question here is that what Istela Nunes is? Because you're right, she is a really good striker. She has flashy strikes, especially on the feet. She has a good combination of being light on her feet, but she can also sit down on some power shots. But she is a zero with her defensive grappling, or at least up until this point. She has not shown much really throughout her career up until this point to where she can get back up to her feet, really recompose guard like she's, Michael Bisping on the ground against GSP. She is a great striker, but this fight is one of those like water and oil fights. It's either going to be all Istela Nunes on the feet, or it's going to be all Sam Hughes on the mat.
That really is it for Nunes. I mean, it all depends on what you think of one championship, what you think of Angela Lee in terms of her grappling. I think Angela Lee's right here, and Ariane Carnelossi somewhere here. where the hell does Sam Hughes fit into all this? Because Sam Hughes will always fight with pressure. She'll eat shots. She'll give one to take one. She's always going to be right there in your face. And that's what makes this one interesting. So if you do look at it for Istela Nunes, she has this in her Instagram bio. 54 Muay Thai fights, 50 wins. The ATT kind of rounding off the edges there, sanding things down over at American Top Team. She's got Valerie Lareda, Karina Dam. I know that's a name that, Matt, you get excited about. And Jacqueline, the new LFA strawweight champion over there. Now, we're going to talk about the LFA strawweight champs. There's been a lot of them recently, but we have another one there rounding out the grappling aspect of Nunes' overall game. And if you look at it for Hughes, kind of switching things up. She's gone to Fortis MMA for this training camp. But again, when we're talking about the fights that we've seen so far, not really the promising prospect that we saw outside of the UFC. And it's almost one of those runs like poor Hannah Cyphers had, where it was just buzzsaw, and she didn't really get a great opportunity.
I like what you brought up about her switching gyms, and I do agree with you. Maybe a change was nice, but this is what I go back to. Like, what was the big thing in her game that she could change with a gym switch, you know? Like, I don't think...
Maybe Jinyu Fry, somebody you can work your grappling with to get ready for Nunes.
I just think with Hughes, her grappling was going to be the X factor no matter what gym she was with. Either she was going to be better than Nunes, or she wasn't going to be able to complete the takedown, and she isn't going to be able to get it done on the feet. I just don't really know what a change in gym for this matchup is really going to help her with. I think maybe in the future it will help her out. I'm just not really sure in this matchup how much it will help her. But again, this fight for me completely comes down to, can Sam Hughes get the offensive takedown? But this is the issue. I've seen her get out grappled by Loma Lookboonmee at this point, and nothing against Loma. Her grappling definitely has improved at this stage of her career, but we do not look at Loma Lookboonmee and think, wow, that is a top tier MMA grappler by any means.
You start training at Bang Tao with the Hickman brothers, their new gym, JHK, doing a feature from there. I'm excited to see his work there. But when it comes down to this fight, you look at the odds. Hughes plus 180 at open, plus 170 right now. For Istela Nunes, open minus 210. She's minus 205. We have a look at the votes over on Tapology. I assume they'll be heavily skewed towards Nunes because the odds somewhat are, again, there's some real head scratchers here, and Sam Hughes on a 3-fight losing streak. I'll say over under 75% Nunes.
I'll say under.
You're going to say under? It is over. 504 total votes, 86% Nunes, 85% by decision for the 14% that have Hughes, 78% by decision. So, Matt, I have Istela Nunes in this fight. I don't think it's any big secret. I think her striking and her output on the feet is good enough, especially in a matchup like this. I like the head movement. Again, we talked about the movement on the feet. I do expect Sam Hughes to push a pace. I like Nunes going side to side, though, and I really do like her counters on Sam Hughes' entries. So for me, I'm going with Istela Nunes. I sounded a little bit like a wizard right there. I hate to talk in those future tenses because, listen, you can't call yourself an oracle or a guru in this game, but I do have Nunes in this pick.
I agree with everything you said, but I'm only going to offer up this one red flag. If it does go bad for Nunes, she's losing a 30-25 decision. It's going to be getting taken down, dragged to the ground, rinse and repeat round after round, and it's going to be hard to watch. But I do agree with you. I do think her side-to-side movement is going to give Sam Hughes troubles, especially with her takedown entries, and I do think with that, Nunes will be able to accumulate some damage on the feet and win this fight.
Big-time fight. Both of us going with Brazil's Istela Nunes to get the win. You let us know down below in the comments section who you have in this fight. We got some big ones coming up. Caio Barrio in the co-main event, taking on Gaji Omar Gadzhiev, and in the main event, Vicente Luque taking on Bilal Muhammad for the second time. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say, let's get into it.